They said a woman could never lead, so I became CEO and bought their company. Out I always believed skyscrapers had a language of their own. The ones that laced the New York skyline spoke in low metallic groans at dawn, a muted hum at noon, and, by twilight, they screamed their truths in streaks of neon and glassy reflections of passing clouds. I could have sworn I heard them whisper my name the first morning I took the elevator up 53 floors to Sterling and Lock Capital. Maybe that was just the adrenaline rattling in my chest. My very first day as a junior analyst at 23. Fists clenched around a second-hand leather briefcase and ambition so volatile it felt ready to combust. The elevator chimed, and my reflection, olive-toned skin, unruly espresso-brown curls corralled into the most corporate bun I could manage, stared back at me from the stainless steel doors. "Rowan Ashford," I mouthed, practicing the cadence for the 100th time. My mother used to say my name sounded like wind in a forest, soft enough to be overlooked but stubborn enough to shape the trees if it kept at it long enough. I intended to be the Gale that morning, unapologetic, insistent. Sterling and Lock's reception was a sea of icy marble, with chrome fixtures sharp enough to wound your confidence if you approached without the correct posture. I straightened, balancing on kitten heels that were already bruising my toes. A receptionist, porcelain-skinned, expressionless, pointed me toward a vast bullpen alive with the patter of keyboards and faint orchestras of Bloomberg terminals. My assigned mentor, Gavin Torvald, appeared from the throng like a Roman statue, danced into life, broad-shouldered, quartz-jawed, and incandescently confident in a striped shirt that probably cost more than my rent. "Ah, the newest member of the Ashford dynasty," he quipped, shaking my hand with an enthusiasm verging on patronizing. "Ready to conquer the numbers?" The dynasty? My father still drove a delivery van for a medical supply company in Jersey City. My mother taught kindergarten. But I smiled and answered, "Absolutely." Because if the gilded shark smelled even a hint of doubt, they'd circle. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of 16-hour days, index fingers calloused from highlighter caps, migraines that came on, like summer storms. 5 years of learning to speak the guttural dialect of earnings reports and leveraged buyouts, of mastering the art of nodding while men explained my own spreadsheets to me. But I rose. I rose because I refused not to. I earned the corner cube, then the glass-walled office, then a coveted seat at the weekly strategy table. My victories were silent and accumulative, like snow weighed on tree limbs, invisible until the branch, bowed under the weight, yet every step upward was greeted with a despite. Rowan hit her targets despite heading a team of senior analysts twice her age. Rowan won the municipal pension fund despite that tense Q3. Rowan negotiated the Sinotech merger despite being, pause for a sympathetic shrug. Rowan. I learned to catalog the slights the way monks count prayer beads, not to mourn, but to keep my purpose sharp. There was the time Michael, call me Mike Pemberton, accidentally forwarded my 2-page memo to the client after deleting my name from the header. Or when, during a celebratory dinner, the VP of operations told the waiter I didn't need a separate check because she's probably watching her spending. The table laughed. I tasted blood in my champagne. I had just turned 28 when the rumor reached my desk that the board planned to appoint a new chief financial officer. Our current CFO, Greta Weiss, was retiring to, her words, learn pottery and forget what EBITDA means. I adored her. She broke trail through boy-packed snowdrifts so people like me could follow with fewer frostbite scars. On her last week, she dropped by my office and said, "You're twice the analyst I was at your age. Apply. Make them see you." Her confidence ignited a fuse I didn't know I still had. Over the Christmas break, while the city was a cold cathedral, of salt-stained streets and bundled silhouettes, I wrote the most ferocious proposal of my life. I turned my studio apartment into a crime scene of sticky notes, market forecasts, debt-equity ratios, my blueprint to pair Sterling and Locks, bloated management layers, and reallocate capital toward sustainable tech investments. When the sun climbed over the East River on January 3rd, my printer coughed out the last page like a white flag surrender. I slid the proposal into a cobalt blue binder and marched it straight to human capital. The woman at the desk blinked at me, uncertain whether I was lost. I was wearing jeans and a parka, holiday dress code leniency, but my voice was iron. CFO application package. Kindly ensure it reaches Director Lorenz before close of business. A fortnight later, I received an email stamped 3:07 a.m. The subject line read, "Interview invitation." My lungs expanded so hard I feared my ribs might pop like cheap umbrella. Spokes. The interview spanned 3 days and 7 sessions. Behavioral, technical, case studies, psychometric grilling. I delivered performance analytics from memory, wrote algorithms on whiteboards, and, in one session, tore apart Sterling and Locke's own quarterly report until one board member loosened his tie like it was throttling him. On the last morning, Director Lorenz, silver-haired, eyes the color of steel filings, leaned back and asked, "Rowan, tell us about a time you failed." My knuckles whitened. Failure was currency for men, proof of risk-taking. For women, it was an epitaph. Said, "I fail daily. The trick is metabolizing failure into data." Their silence was a verdict I couldn't interpret. Weeks crawled. Gossip swirled that a frontrunner emerged. Jonathan Mercer, 42, Georgetown MBA, father of 3, anointed. Golden boy. He played golf with the chairman and sometimes posted photos of his labradoodle wearing Christmas sweaters. I met him once at the espresso machine. He called me kiddo. March 9th, board decision day, dawned bright enough to sting snowblink eyes. I dressed in a charcoal pantsuit I had tailored until the seams obeyed me like loyal lieutenants. In the elevator, my reflection looked carved from resolve. At noon, everyone on our floor received calendar invites titled Organizational Update, 2 p.m. A wave of speculation rippled. Some colleagues looked at me with feigned encouragement, others with thinly veiled relief that spotlight pressure wasn't on them. The conference hall, window-walled and cavernous, filled with employees balancing lattes and anxious whispers. I stood near the back, unmoving. Director Lorenz stepped up to the podium, cheeks flushed. "First," he began, "let us congratulate Greta on her remarkable tenure." Polite applause. Greta smiled from the front row, fingers twisting a strand of pearls. "Second," Lorenz continued, "we are thrilled to announce our new chief financial officer." A pause thick enough to drown in. "Jonathan Mercer." Applause thundered. I heard it distantly, as though my ears had flooded. Jonathan strode onto the stage, his navy suit gleaming. He turned, accepted Greta's handshake, and faced us with the practiced humility of a politician. "Thank you," he said. "I look forward to steering Sterling and Locke toward even greater heights." The branch bowed. Snow slid off in one deafening avalanche. Afterward, as people filed out, Jonathan approached me. His smile was almost sympathetic. "Tough break, Ashford. Killer presentation, though." "If there's anything I can do—" "I appreciate that," I replied. My voice sounded level, but inside, gears stripped. I managed to walk, not run, back to my office. The door clicked shut. I stared at the skyline. The architectural choir that once bolstered me felt suddenly silent. My proposal, red-inked by board comments, lay on my desk. Ambitious but risky. Excellent projections yet lacks executive seasoning. Consider leadership training. The marginalia bled like paper cuts. A memory surfaced. 8th grade track meet. I'd fallen during the 400-meter dash, scraped knees, raw. My coach, Mrs. Dunphy, knelt beside me, whispered, "Someone else deciding when you stop running? That's the only real injury." I stood, finished, and won. I still bore faint scars on my left knee. The carpet cushioned as I crossed the room, opened the credenza, and pulled out a sealed envelope. The resignation letter I'd written 2 years ago on a night thick with frustration. I had amended it quarterly, updating dates, honing language. Tonight, it would finally breathe. I signed it. My hand did not tremble. At 11:47 p.m., the corridors were tomb quiet. I slid the envelope under Director Lorenz's door. Then I returned to my office and spent the next 40 minutes drafting an email to my team. I have decided to pursue new opportunities. Your talent has been my greatest privilege. I scheduled it to send at 7 a.m. sharp. The skyline shimmered. As I powered down my monitor, somewhere out there were investors who didn't yet know they were searching for me. Somewhere hung a future where I would never again ask permission to lead. I grabbed the cobalt blue binder, battle-worn, pages dog-eared, and tucked it into my briefcase. The elevator ride down was a descent out of someone else's kingdom, as I stepped into the midnight air, cold enough to crystallize breath. My phone buzzed. A single-line text from Greta. Come to my apartment 8 a.m. tomorrow. Bring the binder. I smiled. Snowflakes landed on my lashes and melted with a sizzle of electricity. The war had just begun. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. They said, a woman could never lead. So I became CEO and bought their company. Outa City's dawn light has a strange honesty to it, revealing the smudges on glass that night mercifully hides, spotlighting the cracks in sidewalks, catching people. In vulnerable, half-awake silhouettes they would never intentionally present to the world. That morning, 8 hours after sliding my resignation under Director Lorenz's door, I saw Manhattan with those unforgiving rays and felt an acute kinship with every exposed imperfection. A yellow cab ferried me up Riverside Drive to Greta Weiss's pre-war penthouse. 8 stories of dark brick crowned by a copper roof that had turned the dignified shade of oxidized mint. The cabbie, tired but amiable, talked about his daughter, applying to Columbia. I tipped him double and told him I hoped she made it. I meant it with my whole exhausted heart. Greta buzzed me in. Her apartment smelled of bergamot tea and old vinyl records. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a Hudson River still rousing from night, as freighters drifted like ponderous gray ghosts. Greta herself, normally a hurricane, of pressed suits and bullet-pointed agendas, answered the door barefoot, wrapped in a plum-colored kimono. She carried 2 mugs, one labeled Cash Flow Queen, the other Don't Even Ask. She handed me the second. Sit, she ordered, gesturing to a sunlit breakfast nook cluttered with legal pads covered in her slanted handwriting. A large corkboard leaned against the wall, dense with newspaper clippings, index cards, and red twine. I recognized Sterling and Locke's logo pinned dead center, skewered by a thumbtack. I thought pottery was your retirement plan, I said, sinking onto a wicker chair whose cushion sighed under the betrayal of my fatigue. Greta's smile was a thin scythe. Turns out clay is too malleable. I prefer harder materials, like conglomerates. She slid a pack of sticky notes across the table. We're going to break Sterling and Locke into pieces and rebuild its valuable divisions under our own banner. You in? It wasn't even a question. I'd never been more in. The first step of a rebellion isn't the banner or the battle cry. It's the ledger. Greta walked me through her plan. Leverage her golden parachute payout, my savings, and a small cadre of quietly outraged former colleagues to establish a boutique investment firm, Ashford Weiss Capital Partners. Your name goes first, she insisted, scrawling it at the top of a blank page while steam curled from her tea. Street still sees me as yesterday's executive. You're tomorrow's. The gesture lodged a rock in my throat. We registered the LLC that afternoon. Greta's attorney, Miriam Kwan, met us at her office on Park Avenue, an art-filled space that smelled faintly of sandalwood and sealed deals. Miriam's handshake was as firm as tempered steel. If you're going to raid your old company, Do it with finesse, she said, laying out compliance documents like tarot cards predicting a hostile future. From there, the days became a fierce montage, scouting co-working spaces, interviewing a skeletal staff, and, most critically, courting our first investors. Raising capital as an untested firm headed by two women was akin to scaling K2 in stilettos. Venture funds offered patronizing mentorship programs. Private equity veterans fed us coffee and questions, then ghosted. One family office asked if Greta's semi-retirement meant she'd be a part-time CFO. But for every closed door, we found a window slightly ajar. Through Greta's network, we secured a breakfast meeting with Duchess Horowitz, a legendary Dallas oil heiress whose portfolio had pivoted aggressively toward green technology. Over chipped china at the plaza, Duchess, no one used her first name, listened as I outlined our thesis. The global energy transition would mint new fortunes, but only nimble firms could capitalize on the ensuing market dislocations. Sterling. And Locke, bloated and complacent, was a relic poised for a fall. "Tell me why you two can do what the big boys can't," Duchess said, swirling her spoon like a tiny oar in her cappuccino. "Because we remember hunger," I answered without rehearsal. "They remember comfort." Her blue eyes sparkled with frontier mischief. "Write up a term sheet granting me 20% of your GP carry. I'll cede the first $50 million. We left the plaza with air seemingly thinner, lungs full of heady altitude. We needed wins, fast. Ashford Weiss took a majority. Stake in Solvantage, a struggling New Jersey-based manufacturer of thin-film solar panels. Their tech was promising, but their leadership circled like headless chickens. We installed a lean management team, renegotiated their supply contracts, and, crucially, secured an offtake agreement with the Department of Defense. Within 6 months, profitability spiked, and trade journals praised our audacious turnaround led by Wall Street outsider Rowan Ashford. I framed that headline. The noise caught Sterling and Locke's attention before we were ready. One Tuesday, my phone lit with an unknown number. Jonathan Mercer's voice oozed politeness. "Just wanted to congratulate you, kiddo. Impressive work. At Solvantage. Maybe we could collaborate on future deals?" I pictured him in his corner office, polish so thick it reflected insecurities. "If collaboration means you buy high after we create value, sure." He chuckled. "Careful, Rowan. Markets can be fickle." "So can memories," I replied, and hung up. Mercer's call confirmed what Greta and I suspected. Sterling and Locke was vulnerable. Their glossy Q2 presentation hit alarming metrics: ballooning debt from a recent spree of share buybacks, sluggish advisory revenues, and an R&D pipeline gutted to prop up short-term earnings. Underneath the PowerPoint varnish, a microfissure spiderwebbed the firm's foundations. We spent nights mapping out scenarios on Greta's living room wall. The strategy emerged: a stealth acquisition of a critical mass of Sterling and Locke shares, enough to call a special shareholder meeting, followed by a tender offer financed through a syndicate of impact-minded funds eager to salvage the firm's viable parts and divest its toxic waste. Operationally, that meant months of clandestine buying, each purchase structured through shell entities to stay below the SEC's 5% disclosure threshold. Greta tapped an old friend at a Luxembourg-based custodian bank. I built a spreadsheet so complex it looked like Gregorian chant for quants, tracking beneficial ownership across jurisdictions. But we still lacked one piece: irrefutable leverage. We needed Sterling and Locke's stock price to stagger, making our premium irresistible to jaundiced shareholders. Fate, with impeccable timing, obliged. Late September brought a storm so biblical, the Hudson looked like a cauldron. Thunder rolled. As I stayed at the office, parsing an anonymous tip forwarded to my encrypted email, internal Sterling and Locke memos suggesting their vaunted Asia expansion faced regulatory roadblocks. Roadblocks they failed to disclose in their earnings guidance. My pulse drummed as I verified the document's authenticity. File metadata, sign-in logs, watermark patterns. Flawless. We alerted our counsel. Miriam assembled a war room with specialists in securities law and crisis communications. Our obligation was tricky. Profit from Sterling and Locke's turmoil, but avoid accusations of market manipulation. Miriam drafted a letter intended for the firm's audit committee, giving them 48 hours to correct their public disclosures before we turned the matter over to the SEC. Once this goes out, Greta warned, wrapping herself tighter in a shawl, there's no reversing course. I pressed send. The email streaked into cyberspace like a crimson arrow loosed at an enemy fortress. 47 hours later, Sterling and Locke issued a bombshell 8K filing revising guidance downward and admitting unanticipated compliance. Challenges abroad. Their share price sank 18% before the closing bell, then another 6% after hours. Financial TV flashed graphics of a listing vessel. Commentators murmured about leadership credibility. Greta and I watched from a silent conference room lit only by Bloomberg's glow. The ticker scrolled relentless red, and my heartbeat choreographed to each digit. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt something like solemnity. There is a hush to revolutions, a moment when you realize walls will fall whether you celebrate or not. By dawn the next day, our syndicate had secured options contracts representing an additional 3% of Sterling and Locke's float. We now controlled, directly or indirectly, just under 4.9%, brushing the disclosure line like a fingertip against hot glass. That afternoon, the Wall Street Journal published a story. Mysterious buyer gobbles Sterling and Locke shares amid turmoil. There was speculation of foreign sovereign wealth funds, perhaps an activist hedge fund. No one guessed two women operating out of a midtown loft with exposed brick and a broken espresso machine. At 11:02 p.m., as I reviewed updated exposure charts, Greta walked in, her face lit by steady purpose. "You ready?" she asked. "For what?" She passed me a sealed manila folder labeled Phase 2. Inside lay the draft of our tender offer, an audacious bid at a 32% premium. Attached were commitment letters from Duchess Horowitz and 4 other institutional partners. Signatures blossomed across the pages like storm lilies. "You'll present this to the board at Friday's emergency session," Greta said. "Mercer requested constructive dialogue. We'll give him an ultimatum instead." A tremor danced along my spine, equal parts terror and exhilaration. I looked out the window, the city refracted in a million rain-speckled shards, as though the streets mirrored my shattered former loyalties. "Let's finish what we started," I whispered. Across town, Sterling and Locke's neon sign flickered in the rain like a failing heartbeat. They said a woman could never lead, so I became CEO and bought their company. Out Friday dawned with the predatory hush of an ocean trench, deep, pressurized, and indifferent to human consternation. My phone alarm wailed at 4:30 a.m. I sat up, heart lurching like it recognized an enemy in the dark. My apartment smelled faintly of printer toner, and the leather portfolio I'd slept beside, filled with color-coded tabs and footnotes fierce enough to double as blades. The coffee maker sputtered as though protesting the early hour. I poured its bitter offering into a tumbler of ice and drank standing, because sitting felt too close to surrender. My wardrobe offered a palette of blacks and charcoals, but I chose midnight blue, a suit cut razor clean, tailored after our first funding round. The hue felt like pre-dawn sky, a sliver short of true black, promising possibility. I tied my hair into a low knot, pinned with my mother's silver barrette, a reminder of humble beginnings and unyielding roots. The car Greta sent, a silent electric sedan, waited at the curb. Its interior smelled of cedar and new beginnings. Greta occupied the back seat, reviewing a printout of our tender offer. Even bleary-eyed, she radiated command. She glanced up. "Sleep?" "Enough to function." "Good. They'll leverage any sign of weakness." She folded the printout with surgical precision, slipping it into a leather messenger. Jonathan will try charm first, then condescension. When that fails, he'll resort to legalese. Remember, our offer is lawful, our funding airtight, and our strategy shareholder-centric. Under Delaware law, they must consider it. As the skyline emerged, from dusky silhouettes to gleaming monoliths, I breathed in its steel-tinted air. Somewhere beyond those mirrored facades, thousands of employees at Sterling and Locke would soon learn that two women intended to unseat their gilded hierarchy. I wondered how many would silently cheer. Sterling and Locke's headquarters loomed on 6th Avenue, its 42nd-floor boardroom encased in glass like a gemstone in an iron crown. Security waved us through, though their eyes registered surprise at Greta's return. A junior associate attempted small talk in the elevator. Greta's icy smile dissolved him into silence. The boardroom doors opened to a tableau of power. A long mahogany table reflected pendant lights shaped like inverted chalices. 12 directors sat in 2 phalanxes. Jonathan Mercer stood near the head, hands clasped, a pastor before his congregation. He offered a practiced smile. Greta Rowan, welcome. I placed a thick stack of binders onto the table. Their spines bore our new logo, AW in minimalist. Obsidian ink. Jonathan's eyebrows flicked upward. Light reading? Our tender offer, I said, voice steady as ledger columns. 32% premium over yesterday's close, contingent on immediate due diligence cooperation and removal of select underperforming divisions. A director cleared her throat. You intend to carve us up? To refine, I corrected. Your core advisory services are strong, but ancillary ventures bleed cash. Shareholders deserve focus and sustainable returns. Jonathan adopted a conciliatory tone. Rowan, we share those goals. Let's discuss collaboration. Sterling and Locke could acquire Ashford Weiss, integrate your innovative culture. Greta Wow laughed, a singular, sharp note. You want to purchase us with what? Your declining EPS? I slid a document forward, a graph charting Sterling and Locke's debt trajectory. Your credit rating hovers 1 notch above junk. Even if you secured financing, acquisition would trigger covenants you can't satisfy. Silence, taut as violin strings. Then Mercer's charm cracked. This is hostile. No, I said. This is corrective. For 4 hours we sparred. In financial dialects, debt-to-EBITDA ratios, tax shield optimization, workforce rationalization. I navigated their objections like a chess grandmaster, anticipating, countering, revealing their own pieces as liabilities. My pulse drummed, but my voice never wavered. Near noon, Director Lorenz, stoic until now, leaned forward. What of employee redundancies? Your plan indicates a 10% reduction, Greta answered. We'll implement reskilling programs, prioritize internal transfers. The goal is efficiency, not carnage. Jonathan seized the moral high ground. You speak of people as line items. I met his gaze. When you approved last year's stock buyback, you diverted $400 million from R&D to prop up share price. For executive options, how many researchers lost funding? How many cures, innovations, opportunities died quietly so your quarterly report looked shiny? His cheeks flushed carousel red. At 1:37 p.m., we presented voting proxies representing 489%. We'll cross 5% by Monday, I said. At that threshold, we're required to disclose, and we will, publicly. The market will see our premium as lifeline. Jonathan attempted a final parry. The SEC is already circling after your anonymous tip. This smells of manipulation. Our counsel pre-cleared every step. Transparency favors us. Lorenz requested a recess. We stepped into the corridor, its marble cold beneath my heels. Greta squeezed my shoulder. Textbook. I exhaled tension I didn't realize I held. The view down 6th Ave shimmered behind. Floor-to-ceiling glass. A river of cabs and umbrellas drifting like pollen in sunshafts. 20 minutes later, we re-entered. The directors sat stiffer, as if someone had tightened invisible screws. Jonathan spoke first. The board has concluded your proposal undervalues Sterling and Locke and therefore declines. Greta's eyes narrowed. Our premium is generous. Perhaps, Lauren said, but strategic alternatives exist. We will explore them. I understood. They would shop for white knights, stall through poison pills, anything to thwart us. Time, once our ally, threatened to defect. Jonathan added, We request Ashford Weiss refrain from further share accumulation until a collaborative path is outlined. My laugh startled even me. You're asking us to stop breathing. Greta rose, smoothing her jacket. Gentlemen, ladies, see you at the shareholder meeting. We debriefed in a cafe near 45th. Steam curled from our cups like question marks. They'll poison pill, I said. Let them, Greta replied. We anticipated. Duchess has already assembled a proxy solicitation firm. We mobilize retail shareholders next. That night, we launched a microsite, futuresterling.com. It featured a streamlined manifesto, interactive graphs, employee testimonials leaked anonymously. We bought ad space targeting institutional investors' IP ranges, ensuring decision-makers saw banners extolling lean, green, profitable. Within 48 hours, financial bloggers amplified our crusade. Hashtags trended. Dark Unlock Sterling, Dark Ashford Weiss Reform. CNBC booked me for a primetime segment. I rehearsed sound bites in front of my bathroom mirror. We're not raiders. We're rebuilders. Profit and purpose are not opposites. Greta coached from the hallway, correcting my posture, trimming verbosity. She was relentless and right. The interview aired live. Under hot studio lights, I recounted Sterling and Locke's stagnant culture and our vision for a nimble, sustainable enterprise. Viewers flooded social media with fire emojis and about-time sentiments. Mercer must have fumed. Days blurred into a mono-focus marathon. Our acquisition vehicles purchased incremental shares, each push calculated to avoid market spikes. Simultaneously, Mercer announced a strategic review, courting private equity suitors rumored to include Black Eagle Partners, known for slash-and-burn restructurings. Irony tasted metallic. Then, a curveball. SEC subpoenas landing at Sterling. And Locke's door, investigating their Asia guidance misstatements. The firm's counsel issued statements of cooperation, but the stock fell again. Our premium now hovered near 50% over depressed price, a gleaming carrot for weary investors. We called for a special shareholder meeting proposing a new slate of directors, myself included, and immediate consideration of our offer. Under Delaware Code, garnering 15% of outstanding shares forced the meeting. We had 13, 2% more, and the fortress gates would crack. 2 nights before record date, I returned to my apartment to find an envelope slid. Under the door, no stamp, no address. Inside a single sheet. Meet me tomorrow, 10 p.m., Pier 26. Come alone. It bore no signature, but the watermark of Sterling and Locke's executive stationery ghosted faintly. A threat? A plea? I texted Greta. She responded, Too risky, ignore. But curiosity tugged like a riptide. Information won wars. I pocketed the note. Pier 26 jutted into the Hudson like a finger-pointing accusation at New Jersey. City lights shimmered on black water. 10 p.m. found me pacing beneath a skeletal canopy of steel beams. Footsteps approached. Soft, hesitant. A woman emerged from shadow. Auburn hair, wire-frame glasses, trench coat cinched tight. I recognized her. Eliza Shin, Sterling and Locke's senior compliance officer. Rowan, she whispered, scanning the deserted pier. I can't stay long. What do you need? She extended a USB drive. Encrypted. Password is apricity. Inside are internal memos, board discussions about concealing wider regulatory breaches. Asia was tip of iceberg. Europe, too. Her hands trembled. I tried whistleblower channels, they stalled. You can expose everything. Why me? Because you actually care about rebuilding, not bleeding, she said, tears diluting her voice. I'm tired of silence. Distant sirens wailed, lonely. I slipped the drive into my coat. You'll be protected, she shook her head. No promises, but maybe truth is armor. She vanished into darkness before I could reply, a ghost none would believe I'd met. I looked across the river. Sterling and Locke's tower lights shimmered like fragile constellations, each bulb a secret. I realized the magnitude. This evidence could detonate the board's credibility, but mishandled, it could also torch employee pensions, erode public trust. Righteous crusades carry collateral damage. Above, clouds bruised the moon, and the Hudson slapped pylons rhythmically, tick, tick, like a countdown. I turned toward the city, clutching the drive that could either finalize our victory or collapse. The entire industry's faith in finance. A cold wind cut through my coat as if urging me forward. When I returned to headquarters the next morning, Greta awaited in the war room, coffee in hand. I placed the USB on the table. From Shin. Her eyes widened. Have you opened it? Not yet. We need counsel. Miriam arrived within the hour, face grim. She scanned the file contents on an air-gapped laptop. Pages of correspondence, risk committee minutes, proof that Sterling and Locke had downplayed, exposure to foreign anti-money laundering probes. This is nuclear, Miriam said. We disclose responsibly, or we're complicit. A plan formed. Submit to SEC whistleblower office, coordinate with investigative journalists to ensure balanced coverage, and integrate the revelations into our shareholder campaign without triggering market chaos. Time compressed. Phones rang incessantly. I recorded a video message, stoic, transparent, prepared for release when the story broke. My reflection on screen looked older, eyes fierce. Duchess called, drawl razor-sharp. You're walking on dynamite. Step exact. We will. Shareholder record date arrived. We had 16.4%. Enough. Notice went out. Special meeting scheduled at Chelsea Piers Conference Center, 1 month hence. Sterling and Locke's counsel filed lawsuits challenging procedural minutia. We countersued. Court calendars clogged. Meanwhile, whispers of the looming scandal leaked. Bloomberg ran a teaser. Sterling and Locke facing additional regulatory headwinds. Sources say. Stock slipped again. Mercer scheduled an all-hands webcast to calm employees. His scripted warmth felt plastic. Comment sections roasted him, our E. Microsite traffic surged. Small shareholders emailed gratitude, recounting years of stagnant dividends. One retiree wrote, I bought Sterling stock for my grandkids. I believe you'll protect it better than they have. I printed the email, pinned it above my desk. But victory breeds desperation in the threatened. The following Friday, a courier delivered an unmarked box to our office. Inside, shredded pages of our manifesto, soaked in red ink that smelled like copper. No note. Security footage showed nothing. The message was primal. Bleed. Greta increased security. Miriam alerted authorities. I felt fear settle into my bones, but anger forged it into iron. The eve of the shareholder meeting, we rehearsed speeches in an empty auditorium. Lights blazed stark white. Rows of chairs looked like watching eyes. I paced the stage, reciting lines. Shareholder value, ethical stewardship, future vision. Yet a tremor shadowed each syllable. The knowledge that lives and livelihoods balanced on my articulation. Greta stopped me mid-sentence. Speak from the wound, she said. Tell them how it felt when they told you a woman could never lead. I inhaled. Let that old pain bloom. I spoke of corporate ceilings, of rewriting legacies. My voice cracked, but strength surged in the fee. Fracture? Greta smiled. There. That's unassailable. We left the auditorium past midnight. Outside, New York throbbed neon blood. Somewhere, Jonathan Mercer undoubtedly strategized counterattacks. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered. A recorded voice spoke. Withdraw, or the world learns your parents took bankruptcy when you were 15. Click. Deadline. I stared at the screen, pulse thrashing. The bankruptcy was true. My father's van fleet gambled on speculative contracts that never paid. We clawed out through years of night shifts and coupon dinners. A story I'd kept private, not out of shame, but out of sanctity. Mercer had weaponized my past, I told Greta. She exhaled. They're cornered rats. Show your scars before they can. I will, I said, voice like flint. We parted. I walked home under a sky-smeared violet, apartment windows glowing like storybook hearths. Above, Sterling and Locke's tower still lit the cityscape, a lighthouse of fading dominion. Tomorrow, we would storm it with words. The elevator in my building chimed. As the doors slid open, the hallway lights flickered once, twice, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. My phone flashlight cut a feeble cone through the black, and then the lights went out. They said a woman could never lead, so I became CEO and bought their company. Out emergency exit signs hummed to life, bathing the corridor in radioactive green. My neighbors' doors cracked open, releasing slices of apprehensive faces into the gloom. Someone up the hall cursed as a vase shattered. My own pulse felt electric, beating in counterpoint to the dim throb of backup generators kicking on somewhere below. I forced a steady breath. Power outages in Manhattan high-rises were rare. Simultaneous threats and sabotage invitations were rarer still. I sprinted the 8 flights to the lobby staircase, heels clipping marble. The doorman, eyes wide but posture soldier straight, assured residents Con Ed crews were en route. Transformer fire on the block, he said, yet his gaze lingered. On me, as if guessing secrets he'd never dare voice. Outside, sirens slashed the night. Smoke curled from a manhole cover at the corner. City workers in reflective vests cordoning off traffic. The air reeked of scorched metal and ulterior motives. The coincidence scraped my nerves raw. I texted Greta. Outage at my building. Possible sabotage. Okay. Her reply was immediate. Stay safe. Meeting room secured. See you dawn. I hailed a cab to a midtown hotel, anonymity woven from crisp sheets and generic art. Behind a locked door, I spent the night updating slides, cross-checking shareholder counts, and rehearsing responses to Mercer's inevitable smear campaign. Sleep was an ostrich, buried out of reach. Morning arrived iron gray, clouds pressing low like they'd weight of unsaid confessions. The shareholder meeting venue buzzed hours before start, union crews tweaking soundboards, reporters staking camera angles, security scanning ID badges with more vigor than usual. Greta greeted me at the entrance foyer, her tailored suit immaculate, the lapel pin of Ashford Weiss gleaming like a shard of dawn. You okay? She asked, reading exhaustion in the purplish crescents under my eyes. Nothing caffeine can't masquerade, I said. She handed me a stainless travel mug, double espresso, no sugar. Salvation. Beyond a set of glass doors, rows of chairs sprawled across the conference hall, each seat marked by a placard bearing a shareholder name or institution. A dais faced them like a judge's bench. Sterling, and Locke's directors clustered near stage left, Mercer among them, radiating corporate cologne and false serenity. Our slate waited stage right, myself, Greta, Duchess's representative, and 2 independent directors we had recruited. Isaiah Benton, a veteran of green power turnarounds, and Dr. Fatima Noor, a tech ethicist whose TED Talk on finance accountability had garnered 17 million views. At 10 a.m. sharp, a neutral moderator called the meeting to order. A hush settled, anticipation thick enough to chew. Light from skylights painted shifting halos on the carpet, as though heavens themselves tuned in. Mercer spoke first, voice honeyed yet edged. He appealed to tradition, to the firm's storied history, to steady stewardship. He acknowledged short-term turbulence, but promised robust strategy reviews. Behind him, a giant screen cycled slides of Sterling and Locke's philanthropic endeavors, doctors in villages, scholarships for disadvantaged youth, a montage obviously rushed into existence overnight. I noted the rhetorical framing, morality as shield, nostalgia as glue. When my turn came, I stood center stage feeling the room's collective breath hitch. Microphones captured the tremor in my chest, but my words marched unwavering. I stand here as proof ambitions denied will find new doors to knock down. Sterling and Locke's greatness lies not in gilded plaques or annual galas, but in the intellectual firepower of its people, scientists, analysts, custodians, interns, the beating heart that has been neglected for executive vanity. I spoke of the Asia misstatements, of our solar investment successes, of a future free from late-stage capitalism's sugar-high theatrics. I revealed my father's bankruptcy, not as shame, but as origin point, a testament to resilience. The room's air thickened with empathy, and for a moment I felt 1,000 invisible hands pushing me forward. Finally, I introduced Eliza Shin, who emerged trembling but resolute. She detailed the concealed regulatory breaches, the memos she'd seen, the culture of silence. Gasps rippled. Board members shifted, whispers frantic. Jonathan's face drained of color. He tried interrupting, but the moderator upheld order. Eyes from press row locked onto him like hawks. When Eliza finished, I outlined our replacement slate. Isaiah described operational overhaul. Fatima spoke of ethical frameworks. Duchess's envoy guaranteed capital commitment. Applause erupted, scattered then swelling to a tide. The vote commenced. Paper ballots for individuals, electronic clicks for institutions. Observers monitored fairness. My heart pounded seismic beats. While votes tallied, Mercer approached. "You little—" Words failed him, replaced by a venomous glare. "You'll destroy livelihoods with this publicity stunt." I maintained calm. Livelihoods were imperiled by your opacity. "We're offering light." He leaned in, whisper snarled, "Light burns." Minutes crawled. Final counts projected onto the giant screen. Our slate captured 51.7% of votes. Gasps became thunderous applause. My vision blurred. I felt Greta's hand gripping mine, grounding me. The moderator announced, "Effective immediately. The new board is installed. Meeting adjourned." Journalists surged forward, flashes igniting the hall like war-zone tracers. I fielded questions, words turning to sound clouds in memory. At some point, security escorted Mercer out. He looked back once, eyes volcanic, then vanished. But battles seldom end at the podium. That evening, Sterling and Locke's servers suffered a malfunction. Trading algorithms shut down, email archives locked behind corrupted passwords. Our newly empowered tech team discovered evidence of deliberate sabotage. Deletion scripts triggered remotely. Damage unknown. We convened an emergency executive session in the after-hours gloom of the firm's 29th floor. Dr. Noor projected server logs. Logins traced to an IP located at a boutique hotel registered under an alias. Linked our investigators. Believed to Mercer's executive assistant. We had crisis triage to perform. Secure data integrity, reassure clients, notify regulators. Duchess arranged for cybersecurity white hat specialists to fly in at dawn. No time for celebration. At 3 a.m., bleary-eyed in the server room, I received a text from an unknown number. You may have won the castle, but the kingdom will starve. Check tomorrow's journal. A link followed. Embargoed article leak. Headline: New board faces liquidity crunch. Partners withdraw funds. Draft quotes from anonymous sources close to Sterling and Locke claimed key clients. Plan to pull mandates, citing instability. Was the threat credible? Possibly. Perception can become reality within hours on Wall Street. We huddled. Greta drafted a preemptive statement, emphasizing continuity and fresh capital backing. Duchess pre-recorded a video message of confidence. Isaiah contacted clients personally, leveraging decade-old trust. We readied a dawn media blitz. Despite action plans, a fissure of doubt opened in me, cold and echoing. Could we plug every leak Mercer unleashed? Was the empire we seized worth the attrition ahead? Fatima noticed my pallor. The altitude's thin? Yes, she said softly, adjusting her hijab. But you built the lungs for it. Breathe. I tried. Air tasted of ozone and server rack dust. Sunrise shattered night's shell, painting office windows with gold streaks. Across financial news tickers, headlines volleyed between praise and panic. Some clients indeed cued withdrawals, but others voiced tentative support, impressed by our forthright response and the promise of renewed ethics. Greta commandeered the boardroom for a full-day rebuild summit. Agenda: systems restoration, client outreach triage, culture reset blueprint. Between sessions, I stole moments to stand by the glass and absorb the city's relentless pulse. Horns, sirens, the smell of roasted street cart nuts drifting up. 40 floors. By afternoon, Deloitte's crisis consultants confirmed partial data recovery success, sabotage damage less severe than feared. Our CFO, temporary until search completed, projected weekend liquidity well within covenants. Relief washed through muscles I didn't know were clenched. At dusk, Duchess arrived unannounced, Stetson in hand like a visiting general. She strolled the trading floor, firing off wry bon mots, shaking hands, radiating confidence that infected even seasoned skeptics. She pulled me aside. "You did fine, kid," she drawled. "But you're leading now. Leaders see 3 moves beyond the checkmate." She handed me a slim envelope and left before I could open it. Inside, a list of acquisition targets: sustainability analytics startups, AI risk model firms, a charity, microfinance platform, handwritten note: buy futures, not history. D. I smiled despite fatigue. That night, Greta and I sat on Sterling and Locke's rooftop terrace, city lights swirling like galaxies below. We clinked paper coffee. "Cups! To the first day of the future," she toasted. I gazed across the spires and neon constellations. Wind tugged flyaway strands from my bun. "Tomorrow we rebuild trust," I said. A door slammed behind us. Eliza Shin, cheeks flushed, sprinted toward us. "You need to see this." She held her phone out. Breaking news: SEC filed formal charges, not only against Sterling and Locke's prior leadership, but named unknown control persons. Market interpretation: the new board could inherit liabilities, at least until investigations separated eras. Greta swore softly. Mercer's parting gift. I felt weight settle, heavier than before. Dawn's victories suddenly looked fragile, glass castles on fault lines. Sirens echoed far below, red strobes painting building facades. Helicopters chopped the air, news crews chasing the scent of scandal. I stood, spine straightening against the wind. "We meet with the SEC first thing. We open every book, volunteer every email. We blaze so much transparency it blinds." Greta nodded. "But tonight, rest. You haven't slept in days." "I will," I lied. We parted at the elevators. As doors slid shut, I caught my reflection. Eyes ringed with exhaustion, but lit by something fiercer. Call it conviction, call it defiance. The elevator descended. My phone buzzed again. Private number. I answered. A clipped male voice. You took my seat, Ashford. Seats can be pulled out from under you just as fast. Enjoy the fall. Click. The line died, a void humming in my ear. The elevator stopped, unexpectedly on the 31st floor. Trading cube rows dark, emergency lights casting eerie shadows. Doors refused to close. A glitch? Or another sabotage? Then the fire alarm shrieked, piercing, relentless. Sprinklers burst overhead, dousing me in icy water. Red strobes flashed. An automated voice ordered evacuation. I sprinted toward stairwells, soaked, adrenaline scourging fatigue. Down flights of concrete stairs slick with sprinkler runoff, joining streams of bewildered employees. Outside, fire engines converged, but no smoke plumed. False alarm, planted to disrupt, to unsettle. As I stood dripping on the sidewalk, watching chaos orchestrated by unseen hands, a realization crystallized. The war wasn't over. It had merely shed its suit and tie for guerrilla garb. And wars of attrition demanded more than strategy. They demanded unbreakable spirit. I looked up at Sterling and Locke's skyscraper, water streaming down my hair like baptism. Neon letters glowed defiantly against stormy sky. We're still here, I whispered, each word an iron vow. Somewhere within that labyrinth of glass and concrete, Mercer or his proxies plotted the next strike. But I was no longer the junior analyst trembling at elevators' mirrored doors. I was the architect of this siege, the antithesis of their complacency. My fists clenched as sirens faded. The war drums hadn't stopped. They had merely changed tempo. A single thought beat in my chest, louder than alarms, deeper than exhaustion. Let them come. I walked back inside, shoes squelching, to rally my reborn empire. The lobby doors closed behind me with a sealed vault whisper, and then the countdown clock on the wall, one we hadn't installed, began ticking down from Tigra Bar. They said a woman could never lead, so I became CEO and bought their company. Out, the countdown clock ticked in colossal silence. 24. Luminous red against the polished lobby marble like an open wound. No manufacturer label, no exposed wiring, nothing but 4 industrial bolts anchoring it to the wall. Employees pressed forward, phones raised for photo evidence, whispers spreading in electromagnetic waves of dread. I stepped closer until the digits painted my face infernal scarlet. 23-59-52. Whoever installed it had slipped past biometric checkpoints and 24-hour security patrols, leaving a message that transcended language. Time is running out. Shut that down, I ordered. A guard radioed engineering. Maintenance crews materialized with ladders and insulated cutters. Treat it as a potential device, I added. Full bomb protocol. My voice echoed across marble, more serrated than steady. Greta reached my side, umbrella, dripping Hudson rain. This isn't just vandalism, she muttered. It's psychological warfare. Then we answer with forensic precision, I said, scanning the mezzanine for anomalies. Fresh scuffs on terrazzo, misaligned ceiling tiles, anything. Years hunched over spreadsheets trained me to see misorders in data matrices. Sabotage was just misordered reality. By 02:18 a.m., we'd cordoned off the lobby, evacuated non-essential staff, and summoned NYPD's bomb squad. Officers in padded suits X-rayed the device, pronouncing it inert, plastic shell, motherboard, high-lumen LEDs, Bluetooth receiver. Still, we hauled it to an isolation chamber for disassembly, yet the message pulsed on in our minds. Back in the war room, Fatigue swayed shoulders, but adrenaline immobilized sleep. Our crisis crew, Isaiah, Fatima, the white hat hackers, legal, comms, clustered around a projected dashboard. Incoming threats bloomed across the screen. Social media bots stoking bank-run panic, spoofed emails instructing clients to reroute funds, a leak of doctored documents implying we planned to cut pensions. Mercer or his unseen puppeteers had escalated from sabotage to scorched earth destabilization. Objective isn't just retaking the castle, Isaiah said, voice grave. They want to salt the field so nothing grows. Fatima rubbed her temples. We need a narrative firewall, something stronger than statements. We need transparency so radical the lies suffocate in daylight. I nodded, but another thread prickled my brain. The countdown. 24 hours to what? Proxy filing deadlines? Option expiries? Or something more corporeal? Data wipe, blackmail dump, maybe physical danger? Our cybersecurity lead, Devika, pinged my tablet. Found Bluetooth Mac registered to a burner. Phone pinging towers near Weehawken docks. I read aloud. Greta straightened. That's where our secondary data vault servers are. A chill slithered down my spine. Months earlier, to prevent single-point failure, we'd mirrored Sterling and Locke's archives across the river inside a repurposed Cold War bunker. If sabotage breached both Manhattan HQ and the vault, our entire corporate memory could vaporize. We go, I said, voice flint. Now. Devika raised a hand. Already deployed drones for exterior reconnaissance. Interior requires badge, access and retina scan. You too. Greta and I exchanged looks weighted with history. The boardroom battle had been chess. This felt like trench warfare. The company chopper carved through pre-dawn drizzle, rotor blades muffled by noise-canceling. Headsets. Below, the Hudson churned steel gray, container ships crawling like leviathans in sluggish migration. I studied topographical feeds on the cockpit display, bunker location highlighted, signal triangulation. Nestled into Palisades granite, the B facility hadn't triggered any alarm, so far. Greta's gloved fingers drummed her knee. Remember when days were filled with quarterly spreadsheets? She asked, forced smile. Board meetings feel like bubble baths compared to this, I answered. Lights burgeoned on the New Jersey shoreline. The pilot descended toward a camouflaged helipad disguised as maintenance roof. Armed security met us, weapons slung but eyes bright with tension. We hurried along concrete corridors where dampness beaded on fluorescent fixtures, our footfalls echoing among steel doors stenciled with hazard icons. Retina scanners accepted us. The vault control room glowed cobalt from racks of drives encased, behind ballistic glass. Devika's remote avatar guided local techs via HoloLink, verifying checksums. Everything matched baseline integrity. Yet, on a maintenance workstation, a pop-up flickered. Sync pending, T2305. 17. I frowned. Sync with what? Tech shrugged. Unknown host attempts hourly handshake. Our firewall refused, but the timer auto-updates. We dissected logs. The host originated from a Tor exit node, payload encrypted beyond recognition. It awaited remote key to execute, countdown to forced synchronization. My stomach twisted. A remote wiper disguised as update could destroy mirrored archives, financials, compliance emails, HR files, obliterations that would cripple audits and court defenses. Can we sandbox the handshake? I asked. Devika piped through speaker. Set up decoy environment. Let payload deploy into sacrificial VMs. Then we reverse engineer. A plan. I exhaled shaky relief. Hours blurred. Coding, packet sniffing, cross-referencing file signatures. With dark web malware repositories. By mid-morning, we isolated a dormant strain of ransomware dubbed Cerberus Omega, designed to activate across mirrored drives only if both nodes online, ensuring devastating simultaneity. Whoever engineered it required deep knowledge of our network, likely Mercer's allies. Greta leaned against server rack, fatigue etching her face. If this installed before we assumed control, our internal traitor pool widens, she said. I rubbed my temples. Focus, neutralize, then trace. Devika's team crafted a null response patch feeding the malware a false success signal. The countdown ticked to 0. Drives remained untouched while Cerberus collapsed into a sandbox, its encryption routines futile. The vault sighed. Lights. Blinking steady as heart monitors after crisis. Relief swept the room in palpable wave, but we weren't done. Under drizzle at the helipad, Greta handed me her phone. Newsfeed headline. Key anchor investor, reportedly re-evaluating stake amid turmoil. The article quoted sources claiming Duchess Horowitz considered divesting. I scrolled to see flight logs, her jet scheduled to land at Teterboro. That evening yet rerouted somewhere unknown. Disinformation? I asked. Or intimidation, Greta answered. But until we hear from Duchess, markets will assume the worst. We boarded the chopper. Storm clouds massed iron dark over Manhattan. Lightning veined the sky as if scribbling urgent warnings. My mother used to count seconds between flash and thunder to guess distance. I did the same now, craving childish reassurance. 5, 8. Thunder boomed, rattling plexiglass. Back at HQ, the lobby clock shell lay dismantled, printed circuit exposed, like flayed nerve. Devika reported Bluetooth connections ended the moment we cut power. Sabotage Vantage remained anonymous, but forensic teams lifted latent prints from interior panel. A possible match flagged in NYPD database. Freelance systems engineer with prior hacking conviction. Last known contract under shell company traced to Mercer's longtime legal counsel. Evidence was building, mortar thickening in our case against him, but law moved slower than vengeance. We convened a press conference in the auditorium, live streamed to employees, clients, regulators. I stepped to the podium, hair still damp from bunker humidity, adrenaline still frothing blood. Cameras stared, like predatory eyes. I won't dress this day in euphemism, I began. Yes, we face coordinated attempts to destabilize Sterling and Locke. Yes, unknown actors breach security, but we remain operational, liquid, and unbowed. I explained the ransomware deflection without divulging sensitive vectors, pledged full cooperation with authorities, announced partnership with Federal Cyber Task Force. My voice rang across rows, firm but human. Halfway through, a teleprompter note glided on screen. Time for scheduled message. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The line felt surreal amid corporate warfare, but I delivered it with a slight smile. A moment of levity flicked like a lighter in darkness. Online commenters lit up with heart emojis. Internal chat rooms flooded with supportive gifs. Even grim news needs breath. Back to gravity. I unveiled a transparency portal, live dashboards showing key liquidity metrics, audit results, anonymized employee satisfaction polls. Radical exposure as anti-fragile shield. Applause rose, not thunderous, but earnest. Evening bled violet across skyscrapers. Duchess finally called. Crackly satellite line. Had to circle Charlotte due to storm, she drawled. No divestment. Here, sugar, just gravity and weather conspiring. Relief unfurled inside me like blooming camellia. But she added, voice flinty. Mercer's courting my family office's old rival to seed a shadow fund. He's not done, and he's well funded. I paced the balcony as neon ignited below. We'll outpace him. Evidence mounts. Ransomware trace may link him to felony charges. Don't bank on law alone, she cautioned. Bank on leadership. Her plane would land midnight. She promised meeting at dawn. Strategy to buy up convertible notes due in 2 weeks, preempting any hostile bondholders' coup. Duchess always thought 3 moves ahead. At 11:11 p.m., my office lights flickered. A text pinged. Lobby, urgent. From unknown internal number. I descended, wary. The marble lobby yawned empty, security desk abandoned. Then a ping behind me. I spun. Jonathan Mercer stepped from shadow, trench coat damp with rain, eyes bloodshot, smile crooked, unshaven desperation. "You win spectacular battles, Rowan," he said, voice raw. "But empires crumble slowly. I've merely loosened foundation stones." "You trespass," I said, glancing for cameras. "Live feed offline. Predictable." He raised remote fob. "Somewhere." Metal clanged, lights dimmed deeper. "Let me paint futures. Accept my settlement. Step down, sell your shares at premium I dictate, and I'll halt my campaign." Refuse? Servers fry for real. Regulators eviscerate you. Clients flee. Clock still ticking. I kept breathing rhythm steady. Extortion with a dash of arson. Classic leadership. His laugh cracked. "You think you're hero in feminist folktale, but markets adore villains. They move plot." "Markets love returns," I replied. "And we're about to post them." He approached, remote raised. "Last chance." Alarms chirped overhead. Security override re-engaging. Mercer's eyes widened. Behind him, 2 NYPD officers and our head of security emerged, tasers leveled. I'd triggered silent duress alert with heel tap earlier. Mercer pivoted to run. Officers closed in, wrestled remote away, cuffs clicked. As they led him out, he spat, "Winning board vote doesn't mean winning future." "I build futures," I called after him. "You mortgaged yours." Adrenaline aftermath trembled through limbs as I returned to 53rd floor office. Rain rattled window panes like distant applause. I stood, forehead against cool glass, watching squad cars surrender Mercer to judicial machinery he once manipulated. Yet I felt no triumph, only wary vigilance. Hydra heads sprout anew. Mercer's proxies, algorithms, and allies still lurked. And the Cerberus team reported secondary payload dormant in sandbox, coded to awaken if master key lost. We now possessed remote trigger parameter, but disabling it entirely required decrypting fat strings of obfuscated assembly. I turned off desk lamp, leaving only city glow. Tasks queued endless. Finalize convertible note sweep. Brief SEC on. Arrest. Launch mental health resources for staff traumatized by sabotage. But for one breath, I allowed fatigue to seep into marrow. The war's front lines had moved from boardrooms to servers to psyches. Somewhere down corridor, janitor radios crackled old jazz, trumpet notes winding through fluorescent gloom, a reminder that life's rhythm endured beyond corporate sieges. Straightened. Tomorrow promised storms and breakthroughs in equal measure. Outside, sky split with lightning, illuminating the city like camera flash catching humanity mid-motion, fragile, flawed, striving. And I, once dismissed as kiddo, now tethered thousands of livelihoods to my decisions, weight enough to crush, yet also to anchor purpose. I whispered into empty office, onward. Far below, the dismantled countdown clock lay silent in evidence lockers. Yet somewhere else in circuitry labyrinths, unseen timers likely ticked anew. But time, I'd learned, is not enemy, it is canvas, and I would paint the next 23 hours with relentless resolve. They said a woman could never lead. So I became CEO and bought their company. Out I slept 74 restless minutes in a supply closet, head-on folded blazer, before dawn pried my eyelids open. Coffee burnt bitter in industrial urns. I gulped. It black, pulse hammering from caffeine and unprocessed adrenaline. The building smelled of ozone and bleach, overnight sanitizing crews erasing evidence of Mercer's theatrics. Yet the psychic residue lingered, a hairline buzz at the edge of perception. 6:05 a.m. War room screens burned neon graphs, liquidity ratios, social sentiment gauges, legal timelines. Devika's team decrypted sections of Cerberus Omega. Secondary payload, failsafe cascade encoded to erase partitions if any sterling and lock asset dropped below a market cap threshold within 48-hour window. A digital dead man switch? Mercer truly intended a Samson finale. Good news? I asked. Devika pushed horn-rim glasses. We can spoof the Sentinel metrics, trick it into dormancy. Do it, Greta said. She'd changed into fresh. Slate-gray suit yet dark circles under eyes betrayed zero sleep. And log everything for federal agents. Speaking of agents, FBI Cyber Division occupied Conference Room 3, suits crisp, questions crisper. They'd processed Mercer overnight, bail hearing midday. Miriam liaised to ensure company status as victim, not accomplice. I trusted her. Ironclad poise but still recited facts like rosary beads. Truth polished through repetition. EO8. 12 a.m. News helicopters droned overhead, capturing Mercer's perp walk, raincoat over cuffs, flashbulbs shattering dawn. Cable punditry oscillated. Between schadenfreude and alarm, stock tickers wavered but held, our transparency portal apparently buoying investor faith. Still, convertible notes matured in 13 days. Duchess's plan to scoop them at discount demanded swift action. She swept into HQ trailing Texan energy, turquoise, necklace, tailored leather jacket. "Morning, warriors," she called, boots clicking mosaic tile. We briefed her on Cerberus, investor chatter, FBI progress. She raised brow. Scandal fatigue might grind down markets. Let's give them something. Shiny, an acquisition spree aligning with ESG trends. She unfurled her envelope list. 10 targets. We hashed capital allocations, partial debt issuance backstopped by her family office, seller financing where feasible, minority interest swaps. Isaiah suggested bundling 3 AI analytics startups under new subsidiary to modernize advisory arm. Fatima mapped ethical oversight frameworks, algorithm transparency, bias audits, meetings layered upon meetings until perspective blurred. Yet amid tactical flooding, existential tremor persisted. What if federal probe extended culpability to prior board members now cooperating by blaming culture shift? Collateral reputational shrapnel could pierce us. We needed moral high, ground fortified. So at noon, we hosted an all-staff town hall, simulcast to satellite offices worldwide. Stage lights glazed foreheads in anxious sweat. I spoke without teleprompter. I won't pretend I can erase fear with words, I began. Fear comes from believing events happen to us. But power returns when we remember events can happen through us, transformed by our choices. I recounted sabotage, our resilience, our blueprint for equitable growth. I promised whistleblower protections, R&D renaissance, upward mobility scholarships for interns. Then I invited questions, unfiltered, anonymous. The first, why should we trust leadership now? I answered. Because accountability here starts with me. My inbox is open, my decisions documented, my performance measurable. I shared my direct email on screen, daring trolls, applause pulsed, tentative but real. Afterwards, HR metrics showed employee sentiment uptick, Slack bursting with gifs of phoenixes rising. 15:47 p.m. A call from Duchess's pilot, mechanical issue grounded jet in Newark. Replacement part oddly unavailable. Coincidence smelled of sabotage, but Duchess cackled, "When world pulls wheels, you ride rails." She booked a Acela to D.C., meeting bondholders personally. She left her hat behind, ivory Stetson. I placed it on credenza, war trophy or placeholder for her seat. Evening. Rain relented, leaving streets lacquered mirror gloss. I sat with Miriam and SEC Deputy Director via secure video. They outlined potential liability exposure, negligence claims if sabotage exploited lax protocols. We argued we'd inherited vulnerabilities, moved swiftly to mitigate. Documentation aided defense. Call ended. Miriam remained steepling fingers. Regulators respect proactivity, she said, but headlines love villains. You need symbolic gesture. Such as? I asked. Donate equivalent of Mercer's severance to fintech education for underserved communities. Publicly. I authorized on spot. Press release drafted. Duchess's comms amplified across philanthropic networks. Pundits thrummed approval. Midnight. Shadowed corridors. White hat team monitoring server temps flagged anomaly. Cooling units offline in sub-basement. Could be mechanical. Or incendiary, Isaiah, head of facilities, and I descended freight elevator. Metal cage rattled downward, fluorescent bulbs flickering. Door slid open to reveal curling smoke. Fire suppression offline. Heat pricked skin. Call. FDNY, Isaiah barked into radio. We advanced with emergency torches through labyrinth of pipes. Flickers of orange glowed ahead. Small electrical fire gnawing cable conduit. Sprinkler valve manually shut by unknown hand. Isaiah wrenched it open. Water sprayed, sizzling on flames. While we doused, I noticed scorch pattern leading to fiber. Switch panel. Someone tried melting data lines, maybe hoping to cripple portal transparency, disrupt trading desk come morning. Backup spools remained intact. Sabotage partly failed. Security cameras? Smashed. But corridor outside sub-basement captured fuzzy silhouette earlier. Timestamp matched Mercer under detention. Accomplice. 03:30 a.m. Sprinklers ceased. Firefighters vented smoke. Damage limited, but nerves frayed. Raw. I returned to office, peeled off soot-streaked blouse, changed into spare shirt stashed for crises. The mirror reflected gaunt fierceness, eyes ember bright. Another anonymous message awaited on desk, typed on real typewriter. Still. Think you can lead? No fingerprints. I felt anger flare, but deeper, grim resolve. I opened Duchess's Stetson, curious if brim held secret. Instead found folded page of Walt Whitman's Song of the Open Road, underlined. Strong and content I travel. The open road. She'd left encouragement intentionally. I set it on desk like holy text. 8:00 a.m. next day. Mercer's bail denied, flight risk. Yet markets opened red, spooked by compound sabotage headlines. We executed bondholder sweep, Duchess on phone from train, securing commitments at discounted conversion. Our treasury desk repurchased another tranche, funded by short-term credit line. Each executed contract nudged sentiment needle northward. Live. Interview on Bloomberg awaited. Makeup artist concealed fatigue. Earpiece crackled studio chatter. Anchor asked about Mercer's allegations I manipulated markets via whistleblower leak. I responded, transparency isn't manipulation. Concealing. Wrongdoing is. I referenced our SEC cooperation, donation pledge, and diverging performance metrics. Segment trended positive. Backstage, intern handed note. FBI located second conspirator, Mercer's assistant, attempting border crossing at Niagara. Phone contained vault schematics and Cerberus command keys. Capture meant ability to fully neutralize malware. A win, yet bigger war churned. 2 days later, convertible note sweep nearly complete. Liquidity stable, culture surveys trending upward, yet insomnia metastasized. My dreams fractured into code strings and ticking clocks. I kept Duchess's poem folded in pocket. On fifth night since countdown stunt, security alerted. Unregistered. Drone hovering near executive apartment floors. We scrambled enforcement. Drone fled but jettisoned small package onto terrace. Bomb squad found voice recorder inside. My turn next. Mercer's voice crackled through static. Record date pre-arrest. Tick, tick, tick. Fear tasted metallic again. Greta insisted I relocate to undisclosed hotel. I refused. Fleeing signaled vulnerability. Instead, I requested living quarters inside HQ. Executive suite seldom used. Walls thick, security robust. Following dawn ushered rare sunlight. Ray's gilded conference room oak as board convened to ratify acquisitions. Votes unanimous. Press release framed transformation narrative. Sterling and Locke reborn as Solstice Capital. New logo. Intertwined S and C forming eclipse. Employees. Cheered rebrand. Analysts issued cautious praise. We toasted with sparkling water. Champagne felt premature. Duchess clinked glass to mine, eyes twinkling. First summit scaled, she said. Next, Himalayas. I exhaled, one mountain behind, ranges ahead. Yet contentment fluttered like a timid bird. Late afternoon. I prowled trading floor basking hum of renewed purpose. Analysts debated solar tax credits. Coders optimized risk models. Compliance officers smiled for first time in weeks. Life returning. Then Miriam called, voice clipped. Federal marshals in lobby. Warrant for your arrest. Securities fraud. Whistleblower manipulation charge. The floor blurred. What? Stay where you are. I'm en route. Don't say a word. Heart hammered. Employees sensed shift, eyes lifting to me as murmurs rippled. My skin prickled under fluorescent chill. Breath shortened. Elevator doors opened. 2 marshals stepped out, badges gleaming, hands resting on holsters. Silence. Fell heavy. I straightened jacket, meeting their gaze. Exodus of emotions rushed. Anger, fear, defiance. Then clarity crystallized. This wasn't defeat. It was final gambit from a desperate order. And I, Rowan Ashford, would navigate it as I had every labyrinth. One measured step forward. Voice. Steady, truth armored. As marshals approached, I inhaled slow, tasting copper tang of adrenaline. Ms. Ashford? One asked. Yes. He produced warrant. You're under arrest. Allegation of market manipulation connected to leaked regulatory materials. Behind them, cameras recorded, some mainstream, some clandestine. The narrative battlefield shifted again. I extended wrists, pulse thunderous, but words calm. I'll cooperate. Handcuffs chilled skin. Gasps echoed across floor. Greta burst from stairwell, eyes blazing. Miriam right behind, brandishing legal credentials, protesting jurisdiction. I met Greta's gaze, nodded reassurance as marshals guided me toward elevator. Employees surged forward, but security held them back. Their faces, fearful, furious, loyal, burned into memory. I felt burden and blessing of their hope. Elevator descended, doors closing on trading floor chaos, opening to lobby flashbulbs. Reporters shouted questions. I kept silent, chin raised. Outside, crisp autumn air slapped cheeks. Marshals guided me into black SUV. As door shut, I caught glimpse of Sterling and Locke, Solstice Capital, sign reflecting evening sun, letters, blazing like molten resolve. And I knew. Storms might obscure horizon, but sun always stitched day back together. Engine roared. We pulled into traffic. Destination Federal Courthouse. I whispered to myself, unseen. Let there be light. They said a woman could never lead, so I became CEO and bought their company. Out the ride to the federal courthouse was a tunnel of sirens and existential echoes. Rain drummed the SUV roof like relentless cross-examination, each drop an accusation. Are you certain? Are you strong enough? Are you ready to lose everything to win? My wrists, cuffed in cold steel, rested on my lap. The marshals, Agent Hadley and Agent Ortiz, maintained professional silence, yet I sensed Ortiz's furtive, Glances through rearview mirror, curiosity flickering behind mirrored shades. New York hurried past, flooded gutters reflecting neon, cyclists hunched against wind, skyscrapers looming like silent jurors. I focused on breath. In 4 counts, hold 2, out 6. A discipline my therapist taught years ago after 70-hour. Weeks culminated in panic attacks disguised as migraines. Back then, I feared I'd never outrun those spirals. Now, shackled and barreling toward indictment, I clung to the calm they once coaxed. We arrived at Foley Square just after 9 a.m. Press barricades formed gauntlets. Microphones pointed like spears, shutters clicking staccato. Marshals hustled me through side entrance, sparing me the worst. Still, I caught snippets. Fallen feminist icon, market manipulation, another Elizabeth Holmes. The last stab painted frustration hot under my skin. Misogyny wore many suits. Today it dressed as cautionary parallel. Inside, fluorescent lights bleached marble into clinical sterility. Miriam awaited by metal detector, legal pad in hand, expression a blend of fury and reassurance. Greta stood behind her, fists at her sides, Duchess's Stetson tilted low against drizzle creeping through lobby doors. Their presence anchored me, a tripod of trust. Marshals removed cuffs. Protocol allowed attorney consult before arraignment. We huddled in windowless room. Miriam's voice sharpened to blade. Prosecutor claims you timed whistleblower letter to manipulate share price, benefit syndicate. But evidence chain proves Sterling and Locke withheld filings, I said. They're alleging awareness. Isn't motive. Your profit is. This is theater. They file, headlines scream, bail hearing denies release. You're sidelined during company resurrection. Mercer's invisible hand, Greta growled. Miriam slid folder across table. Inside, printouts of encrypted chats from Mercer's assistant's seized phone, timestamps aligning with dossier leak. FBI forensics cooperating, but bureaucracy crawls. Codebreak may clear you days, maybe weeks. I exhaled. We don't have weeks. Convertible note sweep still underway. Rebrand fragile. Employees wary. My absence could spark exodus. Greta placed calloused palm over mine. We'll hold the line. Courtroom 26B soared Gothic high, chandeliers like frozen constellations. Spectator seats overflowed, reporters scribbling, finance Twitter influencers live blogging threads. Judge Elena Munoz presided, robe cascading like storm clouds. The U.S. Attorney Brendan Hale delivered indictment summary. Wire fraud, securities manipulation, conspiracy. He referenced spike in option contracts purchased by entities connected to Ms. Ashford preceding whistleblower email. Entities? Our shell vehicles, legal yet optics weak. He requested remand without bail, citing technical acumen allowing digital evidence tampering. Miriam rose, composure ice smooth. She dismantled narrative. Ashford Weiss followed SEC safe harbor, alerted audit committee before disclosure, purchased options under 5% threshold, public information. She submitted Exhibit A, preliminary decryption logs indicating sabotage, origin from Mercer's phone. Judge skimmed pages, brow furrowing. Hale objected, claiming chain of custody incomplete. Judge sustained but permitted proffer. Miriam countered with Exhibit B, sworn statement from Eliza Shin verifying concealment scheme. Gasps rippled, yet Hale pressed. Ms. Shin is under internal investigation, motive to deflect blame. It was half-truth, Sterling and Locke's. Old guard indeed harassed her, but it didn't impeach credibility. Judge Munoz leaned forward. I find probable cause thin on manipulation. However, seriousness warrants limited detention. Home confinement with GPS, surrender passport. Relief tingled. Miriam requested company HQ suite recognized as residence for monitoring. Judge approved. Bail set at $2 million, secured by Duchess's bond within hour. I left courthouse free from cuffs, but tethered by ankle monitor hidden under slacks. Outside, Duchess waited, umbrella held by aide. Reporters surged. She raised gloved palm. No questions. Let the law work. Her Texas drawl turned flint. Back at HQ, applause erupted when elevator doors opened. I forced smile, weight of monitor heavy as shame, though innocence glowed inside. We convened War Room, now our second home. Devika reported Cerberus fully. Neutralized. FBI patch merged to malware signature libraries worldwide. One dragon slain. Isaiah updated note sweep. 96% converted or repurchased. Residual holders negotiating. Duchess's train activism paid off. Liquidity graph resembled steady heartbeat. Fatima shared employee trust metrics, 83% positive. Yet public sentiment wavered. Polls split over charges. She proposed live fireside Q&A stream. Transparency squared. I nodded provisional. Greta signaled readiness for next acquisition wave, but insisted I focus on clearing name. We divided tasks. I tackle legal ops and perception campaign. She drives capital strategy. Night fell saturated indigo. I lay on leather couch in executive suite, ankle beacon blinking. Skyline twinkled like defiant code. Sweat-cool sheets resisted. Sleep, mind-looping cross-examinations. Finally drifted into dream where countdown clocks sprouted on every building, all ticking towards silent implosion. I screamed wordless until Greta shook me awake at 4 a.m., coffee steam bridging nightmare and dawn. Day 2 of confinement. Miriam filed motion to dismiss based on new decrypt placing Mercer mastermind of leak. Prosecutor stonewalled. Needed. Full forensic chain. So we accelerated. Devika's team worked round the clock to finish crack. Duchess hired renowned cryptologist Dr. Ina Herzog, who arrived wearing cargo pants and quoting Rilke. By evening, they unraveled chat logs revealing Mercer instructing assistant to seed share price panic. Ashford gets indicted. I regain board. Golden evidence, but Chain still needed assistant's plea. Assistant, facing 30 years, folded, agreeing to testify. Miriam prepped supplemental brief. Court hearing scheduled following morning. Meanwhile, sabotage persisted. Botnets flooded. Transparency portal with traffic spiking servers. Devika rerouted through Cloudflare. Still, public lost access for 30 minutes, sparking hashtags, our solstice scam. Fatima launched Twitter Spaces explaining outage, quelling fear with honesty. I listened, pride swelling. Third dawn. Court. Reconvened. Assistant's testimony reading shook gallery, revealed Mercer's coordination with Cerberus coders, payoff from Cayman accounts. Hale's jaw clenched, case crumbling like stale scone. Judge Munoz granted motion. Dismissed. Charges without prejudice pending further review. Crowd murmured. Some clapped until gavel silenced. Outside, I faced cameras. Justice, like markets, corrects inefficiencies, I said. We move forward. Statement simple intentionally, enough to headline. Back HQ, ankle monitor removed. By U.S. Marshals. Colleagues gifted sticker of broken chain for laptop. Relief coursed but victory tempered by fatigue. With legal shadows receding, we turned to final act, consummating buyout of Sterling and Locke minority holdouts, merging naming rights under Solstice Capital, cementing new governance charter, and emergency shareholders webcast scheduled for Friday evening. Goal: ratify charter, vote compensation structure aligning executive packages to ESG metrics, not short-term stock pops. Isaiah rehearsed financial slides. Fatima fine-tuned. Ethical code. Duchess prepped rousing close. I drafted speech. Personal journey nodding into firm's future. Must end with cliffhanger to next part. Part 7 needs cliffhanger. Will end just as webcast about to start, or sabotage again. Will craft tense hook. Unknown feed inserted into webcast. Continue writing long part until cliffhanger. Let's proceed. Continue. Friday arrived crisp, sunlit. We gathered in broadcast studio built in atrium, LED backdrop, pulsating sunrise gradient. 23,000 global viewers queued. Countdown 000000035. I stood center stage, mic pinned, heart thudding sync to timer. Different timer than sabotage. This one of hope. Juror 10. Lights cooled, audience silent. A hush like inhale before symphony. I began, "Thank you for believing transformation possible." I weaved saga, leaving Sterling and Locke founding firm, battles fought. I spoke of hunger memory, comfort complacency, of turning wounds into wisdom. Faces in audience glistened, some employees wiping tears. Then, mid-sentence, giant screen behind me flickered. My speech audio cut, static hiss-filled air. Feed switched to distorted video. Mercer in prison jumpsuit, pre-recorded, smirking. "Hello, shareholders," he rasped. "Before you vote, know the truth they've hidden." Gasps. Technicians scrambled. My pulse spiked. Mercer's image glitched, overlaying lines of code. Solstice Capital sits atop ticking fiscal hole bigger than you can imagine, courtesy of their rush to glory. I stepped aside, signaled. "Devika," she typed frantic, trying to wrest feed. Mercer continued. "Documents will drop in 60 seconds to every major outlet." Countdown overlay appeared. Twadi. I grabbed spare mic, voice ringing above din. "We anticipated lies. Here's real transparency." But screen dominated by timer, rapidly sliding. 59, 58, camera feeds still live. Global viewers watching. Crisis unfold. My mind raced. If fake documents spread, perception could crater before verification. Need immediate proof to rebut or stall drop. Devika shouted, "We can flood upstream server with checksum loop, delaying push 30 minutes, but must decide now." 30 seconds left. I looked at Greta, Duchess, bored. Decision hung like sword. Attack or expose. Risk legality? Timer 25, 24. I inhaled, preparing order that could define company's fate. And in that breath, lights flared, screen went black, then timer reappeared, numbers frozen at Chattered amt. 3. A glitch or new tactic? Audience stood stunned. "Rowan," Greta called. Voice urgent. "We need call, stall, or fight." I stepped toward console, hands poised. 13 seconds stared back, crimson and merciless. I opened my mouth. They said a woman could never lead. So I became CEO and bought their company. Out 13 crimson seconds glared from the screen, each pulse a drumbeat thrumming marrow deep. My hand hovered above the console as if suspended by invisible filament. In that shard of time, neural lightning branched across possibilities. Cut the feed and risk appearing sensorial. Stall with Devika's checksum loop. Confront Mercer's phantom head-on. 12. I chose confrontation. Transparency had been our sword and shield. Abandoning it now would poison every promise. "Patch me into global audio," I barked. Devika hit a key. Green light flared on mic. Cameras pivoted, capturing both me and frozen timer. "Shareholders, employees, partners," I said, voice steadier than pulse. "A disgraced former executive attempts final sabotage. His claim? A fiscal hole threatens Solstice Capital. We have nothing to hide, so we won't hide," I gestured. "Unfreeze the timer," Devika tapped. Numbers lurched. 11, 10. "Let the documents drop," I continued. Gasps rippled. Greta's eyes widened, but trust lit behind them. Duchess folded arms, nodding almost imperceptibly. Let truth burn impurities. 9, 8. I drew breath measured. "While we wait, I'll explain precisely what Mercer hopes you'll misinterpret. Our restructuring accruals. They look like losses. You'll see negative figures. They aren't hemorrhage, they're investment into modernization, staff retraining, environmental remediation. Follow the cash flow." Isaiah projected a real-time ledger graphic onto side screens, green arrows tracing path of capital reinvestment. 5, 4. A hush so profound descended the ventilation hum felt deafening. 3, 2, 1. Timer flashed. 2. Instead of documents, screen burst into white noise, then nothing. Audience murmured confused. Devika's eyes widened. Payload failed handshake. Our penetration tracer pings offline server. Source IP traces back to correctional facility. She looked at me. Mercer tried to launch, but prison network firewalls blocked outbound port. Relief rippled, tinged, with anticlimax. But I raised hand. See, not even prisons trust him. Laughter broke tension. I pivoted. Moral thrust still necessary. But even if drop had succeeded, data context is key, and context is what we offer relentlessly. Isaiah walked viewers through a cruel schedule, line by line. Fatima followed, detailing ethical framework anchoring each investment. I closed. We are building a vessel to navigate 21st century storms, not raiding its pantry for quarterly feasts. Applause rose, a rolling surf crashing shore. Chat feed scrolled heart emojis, rocket icons, our solstice rising trending. Webcast resumed seamlessly. Charter ratification vote opened via secure portal. Within 15 minutes, shareholder approval surpassed 75%. Compensation metrics, ESG covenants, and employee stock ownership plan all passed supermajority thresholds. Victory washed through veins, not adrenaline spike, but warm tide. Post-webcast, board met privately. Topics: integration of acquisitions, cybersecurity upgrades, ongoing litigation against Mercer. Duchess proposed establishing Ashford Fellowship, funding women in finance. Unanimous yes. Greta suggested ceremonial clock smashing in lobby. We laughed, maybe. Fatigue tugged, but adrenaline lingered. I retreated to rooftop garden, city lights flickering like celebratory fireflies. Rain had cleared, air crisp with hint of forthcoming autumn. I dialed my mother. She answered mid-lesson. Children's chatter filled background. Ma, we did. It, I said, tears surprising. She asked nothing of earnings per share, only whether I'd slept, eaten. Then she said, remember to breathe future in, not just chase it. Sage as ever. Weeks unfolded in industrious cadence. Solstice Capital launched Aurora Initiative, financing renewable microgrids in underserved U.S. towns. Media, once skeptical, now spotlighted us in profiles titled, From Hostile Takeover to Hopeful Makeover. My bail dismissal evolved into Department of Justice prosecution of Mercer. Plea deal rumored minimal as decades loom. Cerberus coders indicted. Assistant placed under witness protection. Regulators commended company for exemplary cooperation, closing investigations with no penalties. Stock climbed steady. Bond ratings upgraded 2 notches. Inside walls, culture blossomed. Hackathons replaced hush-hush after-hours. Mental health counselors held sessions. A break room bulletin read, "Tell us something you failed today, and what you learned." Failures pinned like badges. I walked trading floor daily, greeting teams by name. Once, junior analyst gifted me 3D printed miniature of dismantled countdown clock, a trophy of resilience now sitting on my desk. On a brisk November morning, we rang opening bell at NYSE under new ticker SLC. Cameras flashed, confetti cannons erupted. Standing on podium, flanked by Greta, Duchess, Isaiah, Fatima, and hundreds of employees below, I felt culmination yet genesis. But chapters seldom close neatly. After ceremony, Miriam pulled me aside. Mercer seeks injunction to freeze his shares. Claims board ouster invalid. Court date set in 2 weeks. I sighed. Not fear, but tired amusement. We'll contest. Meanwhile, we outpace. Outpacing became mantra. expand solar manufacturer capacity, beta test AI risk platform, roll out scholarship. Data lines soared upward like promises. Share in February, 1 year after resigning, and Solstice held first annual summit in Brooklyn Navy Yard repurposed hall. I keynoted before 2,000 attendees. Jumbotron displayed composite of faces, employees, solar farm technicians, scholarship students, rural clinic lights powered by microgrid. I spoke of improbable journeys, of hunger-forging ambition, of storms that force flight or root growth. Applause thundered, but the moment that moved me came after, when an intern approached, eyes bright. "I joined finance because you proved leadership can be purposeful." She handed me origami crane folded from old Sterling and Lock letterhead. Transformation embodied. Mercer's injunction hearing arrived. Judge swiftly denied, citing lawful procedures and his felonious conduct. Frozen shares transferred to Victims' Restitution Fund. Chapter at last sealed. That evening, board and senior staff gathered in Greta's penthouse, same breakfast nook where conspiracy first drafted. Now walls adorned with press clippings tracking ascension, corkboard replaced by living herb garden. Greta poured champagne. We toasted. She raised. Flute. To Rowan, proof that gale can reshape forest. I shook head, smiling. To all of us, forest and gale. Glasses chimed. Later, orchid dusk draped windows. I stepped onto balcony alone, city roaring lullaby below. Clouds parted, revealing sliver moon casting argent path on Hudson. I breathed, remembering my mother's advice. Was I content? Contentment felt premature, but grounded, yes. Journey hadn't smoothed, just shifted. Leadership would always wrestle unknowns, new markets, regulators' biases. But fear now partnered with curiosity, not paralysis. Below, Solstice Tower logo glowed evergreen and amber, colors of dawn and earth. Employees inside shaped deals that might bend carbon curves, or fund art schools, or sponsor moon mining. Risk models. Possibility infinite. My phone buzzed. Text from Fatima. SEC just adopted our algorithmic transparency template as industry best practice. I laughed, windswept joy. Another vibration. Public channel notification. Employees sharing baby pictures, book clubs, code snippets, culture pulsing. I typed message. Proud of us. Tomorrow, strategy off-site. Bring wildest ideas. Sent. Pocketed phone. Closed eyes, letting breeze cradle hair. I thought of countdown clocks, drones, prison threats, and of roasted street cart nuts, employees' laughter, interns' cranes. I thought of hunger memory and comfort vigilance, and of the whispering skyscrapers first morning at Sterling and Lock, how they seemed to call my name. Tonight they echoed still, but tone had shifted from dare to dialogue, partnered in future, forging. I whispered back, "We're just getting started." Below, traffic lights cycled, some red, some green, a choreography continuing regardless of ambition. But for a brief moment, the city felt synchronous with my breath. Inhale possibility, exhale purpose. A final toast awaited next room, but I lingered another heartbeat, savoring arrival not as finish line but vantage point. Inside, Greta called, "CEO, get back here before champagne goes flat." I turned, grinning. Coming. And with steps light, I walked toward collective brightness. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.